Zombie apocalypse. Was in 500 BC. Jaya felt Vasu poke him as he lay sleeping on his straw mat. "It's time to fetch the firewood," Vasu said. Jaya tried to continue sleeping. "Don't you remember, Sake?" Vasu's tone was urgent. "It's our turn to gather the firewood. The birds are up. That means it is daybreak. Unless we set out now, we are going to be late in doing our chores." By now, the realization seeped into Jaya, who immediately got up and started rolling up his mat. Vasu and Jaya were princes from neighboring kingdoms. As was the custom around that time, the young princes had been sent to the ashrama in order to get disciplined or schooled. In the hermitage set in the Vindhya forest, they were under the supervision and care of Rishi Utatya, the most learned sage. There were several other boys in the hermitage, mostly older than them and set in the ways of the hermitage. They were students and took lessons in grammar and philosophy from the sage. Every one had his duties defined and had to do them well. Rishi Utatya was a strict disciplinarian. Vasu and Jaya were new arrivals. Brought up in the luxury of palaces, they found the life at ashrama harsh. Used to rich food, gorgeous clothes, and the constant attendance of servants and maids, they had difficulties in adjusting to the stark simplicity of the hermitage. Their duties included the collection of firewood needed for the hermitage. This meant getting up even earlier than the others, getting the wood and getting back to the hermitage in time for the lessons and other duties. Today, in spite of Vasu's efforts, the boys were late in reaching the forest, and as it so happened, dry broken sticks were also difficult to find. Even though they tried, Jaya and Vasu could hardly collect anything. Jaya got more and more worried. Suddenly, Jaya and Vasu heard the sound of running hooves. They turned and saw a rider on horseback speeding through the forest. The morning sun, up by now, made the rider's sword and armor dazzle. "Who are you? You look familiar," the rider inquired. "Where do you come from? Answer that first," said Jaya. It turned out that he was a soldier from Jaya's kingdom, passing that way with a royal message for a distant kingdom to the south. When he realized who Jaya was, he got down from his horse and stood with folded hands before him. "I never thought I will see you like this," he clucked his tongue sympathetically. "The last time I saw you, you were at the palace, sitting beside the king. How splendid you had looked then. And now, barefoot, out in the forest at this early hour." "This is the dress we wear while at the ashrama. It is part of school life here," Vasu began to explain. "It is just a stage of life. Once our schooling is over, we will go back to our palaces." But Jaya was lapping up the sympathy the man offered. "I hate it out here. The life is just too tough," he went on. "Is there anything I can do for you?" the man asked finally. "Can I help you somehow? I am on my way, but I do have some time to spare." "Well then, get some firewood for us," Jaya ordered. "We have hardly got together a good pile, and we have to be back soon. You get firewood for us." The soldier obliged. He took out the sword hanging at his side, and sitting on horseback, slashed at the high branches of trees. Soon he got together a huge pile of wood for them. When Jaya and Vasu returned to the hermitage, they found the other students quite worried about them. "What took you so long? We were wondering if you had come face to face with some wild animal," said one of them. Oh, if both of you had been bitten by a snake, said another student. You must be tired carrying that load, said one of the older boys, as another hastened to relieve them of it. You must be hungry, said the Rishi himself. Jaya and Vasu found rules being broken to offer them fruits and milk even before they had done any of their other chores. Jaya and Vasu felt a surprising sense of warmth wash over them. The firewood was taken to the shrine where the sacred fire was kept burning. The fire was burning rather low. Rishi Utatya sat before it, chanting hymns and looking around a bit impatiently for the day's firewood. As Jaya and Vasu added some of the wood to the fire, however, the flames did not leap up as usual. The fire did not brighten. Instead, there was a lot of smoke and a strange, musty smell. Rishi Utatya looked surprised and poured some grita, or clarified butter, into the fire. The smoke became denser, the smell mustier. Let me have a look at the firewood you are putting in, he said, and moved to the pile Jaya and Vasu had brought in. By then, several students had sensed something odd and had moved closer. Jaya and Vasu stood there looking foolish. What had happened? What was wrong? Why was the fire not getting fully kindled? Why was the old sage raging like thunder? Who in my ashrama wields a sword? At Rishi Utatya's query, everyone was dumbfounded. How does he know that a sword was used? Does he really have special powers? Jaya wondered. Vasu looked as if he was about to cry. This wood was not picked up from the forest floor, as it should be. This is not old wood that has dried and withered and fallen down as firewood should be. This is wood brutally dismembered from the tree. This is young wood, full of juice and sap. He pointed a long, thin finger at the slashes and streaks on the wood. One just has to look at those marks to see this. There is no second sight needed, he said. Jaya and Vasu felt silly and small. They were also a little scared. They had heard tales of sages like Durvasa and Gautama reducing people to ashes and stones when angry. Suppose Rishi Utatya decided to deal with them in a similar manner? Which of my boys had gone and collected this wood? The sage roared. It must be one of those new boys. Anyone who has been around for some time knows that this wood is useless as firewood, and that the sacred fire does not accept offerings that involve acts of violence. Where are those boys who brought in this lot of firewood? No one said a word, but Jaya and Vasu knew that they were the only new boys, and it was a matter of time before the sage remembered that. Just after a moment's hesitation, Jaya and Vasu drew up courage and spoke out at the same time. It was I. It was I. You are good friends at least, said the sage, although silly and spoilt fellows. Now tell me the whole story, and I will forgive you this once. There was no punishment, no penalty, once the whole story was told. But everyone, including Rishi Utatya, looked so sad at the end that it couldn't have been worse. Life went on as usual. One morning, when Jaya and Vasu were again out in the forest, collecting honey this time, there was again the sound of running hooves. It was the same soldier. He got down and stood before them. I'm on my way back to the king, your father, he said to Jaya. What message shall I carry? Shall I tell him you are miserable at the ashrama and that he should get you back home? What do you want me to say? Tell him I am learning my lessons well, answered Jaya, and I have a lot to learn. Just that? The soldier looked astonished. Well, what are you doing today? Collecting honey? Shall I help? No, no, said Jaya and Vasu at once. We will do it ourselves. We will do it ourselves.